Guys, let's just go ahead and move into our primary back attack. Now, we talk about how the back mount is the most powerful position in Jiu-Jitsu, and the reason for that is because I have all of the advantages on my side. All of my weapons, my frames, my levers are all facing my opponent, whereas all of their weapons are facing away from me. So it allows me to really control the position, but more so, it makes it very easy to submit my opponent, which in Jiu-Jitsu, the submission is the goal. Our goal in Jiu-Jitsu is to submit people, and all that means is just put them in a position where they have to give up or they risk injuring themselves. Now, in the case of a choke, there's not really much injury that's going to be risked, more so going unconscious, which is never something that we want to happen, so we're going to talk about measures to avoid that tonight. But we're going to be looking at the rear naked choke, and this is kind of the bread and butter back attack that we're always looking for when we're on somebody's back. So tonight, our focus isn't necessarily just going to be on the choke. While we are going to learn how to do the rear naked choke, we're more so going to focus on how to fight to get to the rear naked choke, because that's actually the main battle. The choke itself is very easy, and just so that you guys have some context, I'm going to show you what the rear naked choke looks like. So if coach is down, we're just starting the seated back mount. So if I'm on somebody's back, a rear naked choke looks like this. This is a rear naked choke. The way that any choke in Jiu-Jitsu works is that I'm creating a triangle around his neck. I'm creating two frames on either side of his neck, cutting off the blood circulation to his head, and I'm creating what we call a backstop behind his head so that he can't pull his head out of it, okay? In the case of a rear naked choke, I'm creating this triangle using my elbow here. So I'm cutting off the blood flow on either side of his neck, and then my other hand comes behind his head, again creating a backstop. From this position, we're simply going to start to squeeze, and we'll talk about the finer details of actually finishing the rear naked choke. But our primary focus tonight is how do we actually get here? How do we get our hand to their shoulder? Because this is the staging ground for the rear naked choke. Everything happens, as far as submitting this person, everything happens once I grab his shoulder. Everything before then is a battle. So let's first talk about some of the primary ways that my opponent is going to defend themselves when I'm on their back. When I do a seatbelt, guys, we have a kill hand, and the kill hand is the thing that's actually going to choke him out. Now, we say kill hand, but I'm not literally going to use my hand. I'm going to use my arm. But the kill hand is what he wants to defend against. So when I use my seatbelt, I'm going to place my right arm over his shoulder and my left arm underneath his shoulder. And I'm always going to grab the top hand, also known as the kill hand. I'm going to grab the kill hand. Now, he's smart. My opponent is always going to be smart, and we want to plan for that because we don't want to plan for someone who has no idea what's going on. We want to plan so that we actually have a good response against a skilled adversary. So once I'm in this position, my opponent's going to be grabbing the top arm. He's going to be grabbing the kill hand. Now, the way he's defending is very important. He's not just kind of grabbing willy-nilly. He's creating a frame with his left arm. This is the primary defense mechanism because this frame is going to be defending him from me pulling my arm around to grab his neck. So this is his primary defense. His secondary defense is a hook. The hook is fine, but if it's just the hook by itself, if I'm stronger, I'm going to overpower him and get my hand to his shoulder. So we never just want to rely on the hook. The hook is secondary to the frame. So this is where we're going to start tonight. My opponent is defending the choke. So we're going to look at our most basic response to this. And again, everything's going to lead to us just grabbing the shoulder. We'll talk about the choke later on. So I'm going to demonstrate our basic punch counter. So it's going to look like this, guys. I'll go slow so that we can see what it looks like. Okay, so this one's very simple. All I'm doing is I'm using my underhook hand to strip this grip off of my wrist. Okay, anytime somebody's grabbing my wrist, I'm going to use the underhook, the hand that's under their armpit, to grab their wrist, and I'm simply going to strip it off like I'm pushing it away. Now, we still have the hook. Again, if I'm strong, maybe I'll win that, but I don't necessarily want to rely on a strength battle. I want to use mechanics to help me win. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take my hand and I'm going to punch it forward. And this is going to give me an extra inch or two to get my armpit on top of his shoulder. And so now I'm able to easily reach around and control the shoulder here, okay? This is going to be our first option tonight, guys. We're just going to go for the punch variation. So again, We're starting in the seated back mount position. In jiu-jitsu, guys, you're never actually going to be sitting here like this. We're always going to be on a side when we're on somebody's back. But for simplicity's sake, let's just start here. So again, we have the seat belt. My opponent reaches up to defend, so he uses a frame and a hook. Underhook, comes out, grab his wrist, strip it off. I'm going to take the hand that he's grabbing, the kill hand. I'm going to punch it forward. And again, you don't really have to be too mean with this, right? I'm not trying to like throw my shoulder into the back of his head. You're going to find it's relatively easy to just punch and then grab. So you're creating that small window of opportunity where you're elongating this lever to make it easier to reach around to the other side of the shoulder. So again, I've stripped the initial grip. I'm going to punch my hand forward and find his shoulder. If I can get into this formation, this is our attack formation for the rear naked choke, we're ready to actually submit them, which we'll get to in a moment. All right, guys, so I'll demonstrate once more without talking. And again, once I'm here, I'm not necessarily, if we rotate, I'm not necessarily just trying to grab his shoulder. I'm trying to reach around for like his scapula. So I'm trying to really reach my hand as deep as I can get it. This is going to help me keep my elbow underneath his chin, occluding the arteries on the side of the neck. So if I'm here, that's fine, but try to get that hand as deep as possible. Alrighty, guys, I'll show once more from this perspective so you can see the underhook in action. And again, once I'm here, we're all set. Notice I didn't release this hand with the underhook. I'm still controlling this wrist because this is his primary defense. If I strip the grip, punch, and then let go of it, he's just going to reframe and again defend the rear naked choke. So I strip the grip, keep it held in, punch, and grab for the shoulder right here, still holding on to that wrist. Alrighty, guys, so we'll work into this and we're going to eventually get to that choke tonight, but let's first talk about how to actually get our hand on the shoulder, which is the first layer that we need to get to. Okay, any questions, guys? 1, 2, just one for one. So we're fighting to get to the rear naked choke. That's our focus. It's not necessarily just how do I do a rear naked choke, because that's awesome, but against a skilled opponent, it doesn't matter if you know how to do the rear naked choke. If they're defending and you don't know how to deal with that, then who cares how many submissions you know? You have to learn how to control the position first before you can actually apply your technique to finish. So if coach sets down, so our first option was to simply use the underhook to control, so he's got his grips in the correct position. We're using our underhook rather, to strip the grip. I notice that he's still hooking. Again, if I'm stronger than my partner, I can simply kind of walk my hand up, okay? But again, if there's a strength battle and you think you might lose it, we're gonna punch to generate that extra force to get our hand from here to here, okay? And again, once we're in this position, we're cooking with gas. However, this is sometimes not gonna go according to plan. Sometimes I strip the first grip, but he's just got a death grip on my arm, and I just simply cannot get my hand up to his shoulder no matter what. I can punch and try everything. It's just not gonna work. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna use what we call the handcuff. And this is a very simple position we're gonna put our opponent in. I'm gonna show it first from this seated position, but then I'm gonna demonstrate how we can make it a little bit stronger by doing it from the underhook side. So the handcuff position is gonna be this. And so now I'm handcuffing his hands together, allowing me access to the shoulder. So simply, he's gonna reach up and grab. I'm simply gonna start by stripping the grip like we did before. I don't wanna push it too far away, because if I push it too far away, we're not gonna be able to do the handcuff. I want both of his hands to be kind of stuck together. So once I strip the initial grip, I'm gonna actually go 2-on-1. So we call this a 1-on-1 grip. One of my hands is on one of his. I'm gonna go for a 2-on-1 grip. So 2 of my hands are on one of his. So you can think of it like your handlebars of a motorcycle, right? I'm just gonna reach straight down here. Now, I'm essentially using what we call a placeholder system. And a placeholder system is where I'm gonna replace one object with another object. So my underhook stripped the grip. The kill hand is gonna grab his wrist, allowing me to remove the underhook hand. So now I'm still controlling the frame, which is his initial defense, but I can now remove the underhook hand. This frees this hand up to simply reach up and peel his hand off of me. There's many ways that you can peel it off. Essentially, I'm just gonna kind of pull it, but we can also kind of grab from the pinky, and I can start to peel it off this way. We're never allowed to grab individual digits, but I can simply grab at the pinky here, which is gonna give me the best leverage to start peeling it off, and I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm gonna push it down, and now here comes the handcuff. I'm gonna pin his hands one on top of the other on his belly button as I remove the kill hand. And so now that I've removed the kill hand, there's nothing stopping me from reaching up and getting into the shoulder position to start the choke. Okay, so again, he's here, strip the grip, 2-on-1, peel the hand off, pin, and get right hand up to the choking position. Now, this is a very, very strong position to put your opponent in, this handcuff position here, but it's not completely invincible because it's relatively easy for him to start weaseling his hands out because again, now it's 2-on-1 on his side, you know what I mean? So it's 2 of his hands fighting against 1 of mine, so it's gonna be a hard battle to win. So after you start to understand how to use the handcuff, we can start actually getting to the underhook side to use our thigh to assist with pinning. What I mean is this, from this position here, he's defending, strip the grip, 2-on-1. I'm gonna fall over to the underhook side and pin, and now I'm using my thigh to kind of pin his elbow to my knee. I'm gonna use this to kind of keep his hands a little more stuck. And again, I get under the shoulder and grab the neck, okay? So you can certainly do this from either side, the overhook side or the underhook side. But if you'd like a little bit of extra support with the actual handcuff motion, you can get his elbow on top of your thigh, and now I'm pinning and I'm squeezing using my thigh to keep this elbow pinned in place. And again, I'm ready to reach and grab his shoulder. All right, guys, so let's run through it one more time. Strip the grip, 2-on-1, reach up, peel the hand off, pin, and go for the shoulder. If you'd like to, you can fall to the underhook as you do this. Strip the grip, 2-on-1, peel. Now I use my thigh to help create a stronger pin. And again, I'm ready to go for the shoulder. I'll demonstrate once more without talking. Once we're in this position, again, we're done. We'll talk about the choke here in a little bit. Any questions, guys? Ready, 1, 2. Okay, we're almost there. We're almost ready to actually do the submission. We just have one more thing to talk about, and then we're actually gonna get to tap each other out tonight. The last thing we need to talk about is what we call the white belt defense. It's not necessarily just for white belts, but it's not necessarily a fallback defense we wanna rely on, and you'll see why. It's the chin tuck. Okay, so we're gonna talk about what to do when our opponent tucks their chin, and essentially they're just trying to close this gap to not allow our arm to come underneath their neck. So this is gonna be a very simple solution. I'm just gonna sit down behind Coach Seth for this one. All right, so let's say I've already won the grip fight, everything's looking good, everything's fine, but as I try to reach and grab for the shoulder, I notice that his chin is tucked. First of all, I can still choke him even if his chin is tucked. It's just gonna really hurt for him. So again, it's not a good idea to do this, but I want to get underneath his chin just because it's going to be easier to choke him. Just because I have the ability to do it from here doesn't mean it's going to be as efficient. So what we're going to do is we're going to use our knuckle here, our right knuckle. We call this the screwdriver. I'm going to take my knuckle and I'm going to trace it along his jawline. Now, as I trace my knuckle along his jawline, Coach Seth is going to compensate essentially for the pain by turning his face away. Okay, and this is going to make it not hurt as much. So it's going to be ineffective if I'm simply doing this. I'm not going to be able to get underneath the shoulder. So what I need to do is I need to use something to not allow him to turn his face away. And in that case, we're going to use our face. So now, as I take that screwdriver, he's unable to actually turn his face anywhere. And he allows my hand to come underneath his shoulder. So I don't want you to necessarily think of pain compliance as being a good technique in jiu-jitsu, because that's neither here nor there. But I'm not necessarily using pain compliance. I'm using a mechanical advantage, a wedge, to get underneath the thing I need to get underneath. Does it hurt? It can, depending on how adamant he is with me not getting underneath his chin. Okay, so when we do this one, we don't have to sit there and just, fight for dear life, right? Because you're gonna get bruised up. Right? We're just gonna kind of defend a little bit, and then once we feel it, we're ready to move on. So again, I'll show it in the context with the hooks. So feel free, you can work the, all this stuff that we did in the beginning, right? All of the ways to get to the choke. But our primary focus is going to be their chin is down. I'm gonna take my right knuckle, and so all I'm doing is it's like I'm holding like a magic wand in my hand. My right knuckle is going to be, or a screwdriver. Hey, that makes sense. And then I'm gonna use my right knuckle here, right along the jawline. And I'm literally just gonna trace his jawline from one side of his face to the other. That's gonna allow me to force his chin up and get underneath. So again, my chin is essentially gonna bite down on his shoulder right here. My head is acting as a frame to prevent him from turning his face. So as I do this, and again, be gentle with it, I'm gonna go under. As soon as his chin is up, that's where I want it to be all along. Okay, guys? So let's try running through this a couple times. I'll show once more in slow motion. Here we go. Okay? Always get into the habit of starting off at least with this wrist control here, okay? Because again, this is the frame that he's gonna use to defend. So even if we're drilling something as simple as this, just feel free to grab this one, chin down, slide under, and then grab that shoulder. Alrighty, guys, so using that screwdriver, get to the other side. Any questions? And then we'll do our choke. Okay, guys, that's next. Ready? 1, 2. All right, guys, so now let's finish with the actual choke, the thing that you all wanted to learn in the first place, how we're actually gonna submit somebody, how we're gonna win, how we're going to put them to sleep, theoretically, if they don't know how to tap out. So before we do any submission, we gotta understand that in jiu-jitsu, the tap is a nonverbal way to communicate with our partner to tell them, stop, I give up, that hurts. We tap if something hurts, or if we feel like we're getting ready to be choked out, and choked out just means go unconscious. We never want to go unconscious. It's never worth it.
You don't really even want to get close
to
doing that.
Yes.
Just tap earlier than that. Don't risk blacking out.
Yeah, tap early, tap often. There's no harm on it. It's how we learn in jiu-jitsu. We learn by tapping so that we can actually figure out what's happening. So let's talk about the rear naked choke. So we already talked about what the rear naked choke is. I'm using my arm to occlude the arteries on the side of his neck, creating a backstop so that he can't pull his head away, and I'm simply gonna squeeze and put him to sleep. So this is a blood choke, meaning I'm cutting off the flow of the blood to the brain, as opposed to a wind choke where I'm attacking the windpipe. Wind chokes are fine, they don't work as quickly, and they can result in more injury, so the blood choke is overall more effective. But let's say we've won everything, I've won the grip fight, and I've gotten here. So from this position, we're gonna go ahead and finish the rear naked choke. I'll demonstrate the basic way that we like to finish it, and then we'll talk about it. Here we go. Okay, so very simple, guys. The reason that we like doing this choke in the fundamentals class is because, 1, it's very easy, and 2, it's low risk, meaning I'm not presenting a whole lot of things that he can use to sort of reverse this whole situation. Okay, if I start like doing arm bars and throwing triangles at him, those work great, but they're also pretty risky, so this is very safe. Okay, so again, I start always by using the left hand, the underhook, to control this framing hand. I'm always looking to get to the shoulder. This is the initial battle. So once I'm here, I'm looking to get my elbow underneath his chin. That's ideal. If it's not possible, it's okay, but that's ideal. So I can do that one of 2 ways. I can simply walk my fingers further back to his scapula to get my elbow underneath there. Or if I want to be mean about it, I'm simply going to take my hand out, gable grip my hands together, and just pull it into place. So now my elbow is definitely underneath his chin. Now, here's the make or break it point with the rear naked choke. People will get here a lot, but they lose the choke because they start to present their opponent with levers to their body, meaning I'm gonna start to reach my hand out in front and I give him a lever to hold on to. Now he has something to manipulate that starts to control my shoulder. And maybe I'm strong enough to finish it with one arm, but probably not. It's gonna give him a lot more time to start to escape. So I think of it like this. The 180 degrees in front of his face, he should never see my hands. The 180 degrees in front of his face, this is the red zone. He should never see what I'm doing. So it's like a good magic trick. I never want him to see it. So when I'm actually doing the choke, everything takes place from his ear back. So once I grab the shoulder and my elbow is underneath his chin, I'm going to retract the underhook. As soon as I retract the underhook, I'm gonna start sliding my left hand behind his head. And notice how I lift my head up like a garage door, and I allow my left hand to slide behind his head. Now I need to anchor the choke, meaning I need to create a closed loop that I can use to start to strangle him. And the closed loop is going to exist because of my right hand. As I slide this left hand behind his head, my right hand acts as a stopper to stop my hand. And now I want to grab. And I'm not just grabbing on my bicep with my fingers, okay? If I grab with my fingers, the fingers in and of themselves are a lever, right? The fingers can generate force to affect the wrist. So I actually want to grab with my wrist. So I'm grabbing here. So I'm using a hooking motion to grab onto my bicep as opposed to just with my fingers. This is always going to be more effective. So I come in here and I grab with my wrist. My left hand is not going to go to the back of his head like we see in movies. And the reason for that is because when I put my hand on the back of his head, all he needs to do is reach up and peel my hand off. So instead, I'm going to reach my left hand, and again, I'm showing this for example. I don't want my hand to be sticking out here. I'm going to stick my left hand all the way to the other side so I can touch my shoulder on the other side. And now I put my head down. So even if he reaches back, my head is in the way. He can't peel my hands apart. So for the choke itself, it's as simple as just squeezing the neck really hard. But if you want to be a little bit more efficient with it, I'm going to pretend like I'm going to touch my elbows together. And as I touch my elbows together, I'm going to start to pull up on his neck as I push away with my legs. It's not necessarily about squeezing his neck hard. It's about hanging him. Like I'm trying to hang him from his neck. This is going to be a really efficient way to strangle people who have much bigger necks. Because if he's got a really big neck, that's a big thing to try to squeeze. But if I can more so hang him, it's going to be way more efficient. Okay, so a lot of little details, guys, but we're talking about efficiency here. So again, I'm always starting with this hand trap. I grab the shoulder. I'm going to get that elbow underneath the chin as best as I can. If I'm not able to, it's not the end of the world, guys. Everything can still work. I'm just going to do my best to get the elbow there. I retract the underhook. I slide my hand. I never want him to see it. I slide my hand behind his head. I grab nice and deep with both hands. My chin goes back down, and now from here, I'm going to pull towards me as I make my elbows touch each other, and I push him away with my legs. So I'm doing this. I'm pushing him forward. Okay, guys? I'll demonstrate once more in slow motion without talking. Here we go. And it's a very quick tap. So again, the person in front, as soon as we feel it, we're just going to tap, and then they're done. They're going to let go, and we can switch out. Okay? Does anybody have any questions on the rear naked choke? All right, guys, so this is the basic one. Let's go ahead and run through this a few times. 1, 2, let's go.